Have you ever considered anything other than IT within the tech industry?
So, my in my experience, I meet a lot of people. I've worked with a lot of people, hired and whatnot. And it's funny because speaking very, very generally, you'll meet people who they just in their heart, they're engineers. They just love taking things apart and putting them back together. And can I improve this or that? Right. You'll meet people who are just artists, right? Whatever career they ended up in their heart, they're an artist. One of our most successful products is a guy who I think was an engineer in his heart, but he became a doctor. But because he loves programming and whatnot, he never stopped. So he built something that was like very useful because he knew how to program. All that to say, I'm a designer in my heart. Like, and that's like related to IT, but it's not direct IT. That's more like, again, back to the play metaphor, the prop designer, maybe the person that paints the set or something like that. So it's related to what's going on up there on the stage, but it's highly visual. I really love seeing the results of our work and seeing it out in the wild and how it's being used. And I love working with our design team to sort of solve those problems. So I I never like sat there and thought I never had the opportunity to go, you know what, maybe I should switch to design. But as I reflect back on what I enjoy, what I personally really have enjoyed, it's more of the design stuff. And that overlaps with like getting to talk to the client. So in a way, because we're small and I get to do a lot of different things, I still get to do some of that, even though it wasn't the path I ultimately pursued.
That's very interesting. I didn't realize how multifaceted IT could be and not necessarily like the black and white that most people may think of. Are there any other misconceptions of IT that people may have that you want to clarify?
Um, I don't know about misconceptions, but one thing that I have it's actually like I don't know if it's a personality trait or something in the way I was raised or whatever, but there's something to, working in teams. So one of I guess misconception I talked about it earlier is that everybody in IT is introverted and like, doesn't they don't want to come out of their little caves that they're programming in. And while again, there are personalities like that, in the vast majority of cases, the most successful groups are teams that are working collaboratively. And um and you kind of want a little bit of friction in those teams. Like I notice some of my best work has been when I've had to work with someone I don't particularly like. And because we don't particularly like each other, we will be very honest in our feedback of each other's work. And the end result is like something better than the two of us could have produced or the team could have produced otherwise or on their own. So I don't know. A misconception is you don't have to do it all by yourself. Working in teams is super important. In fact, is likely to get you a better result than you would otherwise. And you'll learn more because you're going to learn more from the other people. And friction can be very good.
Thank you. I never looked at the positive side to the friction that you mentioned in a team. And I think looking at it and hearing how you explained it, it's something that I'll actually look forward to in a team.
Great. Yeah. As long as everybody's there actually, with the best intentions, truly trying to do the work, the friction can actually be a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like communication is just one of those like essential skills that you're gonna have, probably like regardless of any job that you hold, because working with people is like an inevitable part of like living. You have to interact with people all the time. So
Hmm.
yeah.
For sure.
So yeah, so we were also wondering when it comes to like different ways to enter the field, like what are the kind of like unconventional ways like outside of school that
Yeah. And that's the cool thing about IT is that you could, you could get a degree in sociology and get into IT because you can pick up the skills. There's so many resources out there. I mean, literally just YouTube, starting there and looking for a programming language that you could learn or how to improve your AI prompting or literally any other technical thing that is of interest, you can at least pick up the thread of where to start learning that and follow it until you become an expert. So there's just YouTube, there are coding boot camps, there are all kinds of free open source classes that you can take through very super reputable universities. Um, and then the in my opinion, it's really cool when you have a different degree, you have some experience in some like other field, because IT can be applied anywhere, in art, in healthcare, in engineering, and in the environment, and any other interest you may have. If you then pick up other technical skills, IT related, there's going to be some application for it. And those skills you can learn virtually any of them for free if you just put in the effort to find them, and literally even get credentials, like maybe not a degree, you'd have to go to school for that, but you can get actual, even in some cases free, things you can put on your resume. They're sort of proof that I do know these concepts or tools or whatever they are.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
oh, you can go ahead, Yasmin.
Are you sure?
No, yes, yes.
Okay. And based on what you said about like students looking for ways to receive those credits, are there any trends that maybe students should be aware of in the field of IT, or maybe some mistakes that they should avoid from making?
So, I mean, again, we talked about it. The biggest is AI. So, and one thing I think you're starting to see it. There's even research coming out. Is that I was actually trying to think of a good analogy for the podcast, and I don't know how good this is, but I'm gonna give it a go. AI. Imagine if we had like an exoskeleton like Iron Man super suit, right? That's AI. We can, it can. I'm sure we've all done it. Hey, I need to send an email. I need to decline politely this invitation or whatever it is. What should I say? And it just boom, it just gives it to you. And it's very clear. It's written like a New York Times best whatever journalist just wrote it for you, right? Even using the long dashes and all this stuff. And that's really amazing. But imagine if all you ever did was wear the exoskeleton. Your muscles are going to atrophy. You're not going to, when you don't have that suit on, you're not even going to be performing at the level you were before. You're going to be performing worse. So that's the thing I would caution is do not, obviously don't cheat with it, but even in your day to day, yeah, let it punch up your email for you, but then keep going. Like critique critique it back and make it better, or don't use it. Write that email on your own. Use it to give you ideas and then run with those ideas and then have it critique your ideas to improve them, but don't have it do the work for you. So that's really important that because I feel like on the one hand it could be that super suit that you end up actually becoming weaker from, or it could be like a set of gym equipment that somehow you end up getting stronger because you're using it to teach you to get better, and you're using it strategically to really improve your thoughts and your ideas, and maybe get a hook of an idea that you weren't going to come up with on your own, but then you can run with that a little, and make it something that's yours. So
Yeah.
I forget what the question was, but I wanted to make that point during this
No, you
podcast. Be
answered it
careful
very.
with how you're using it.
Yeah, no, I think you answered it perfectly. It is something that we, even like us, even if we're not interested in IT, we should be very careful about AI and how we could not cross the boundary between improving and completely letting it control what we do and losing our own creativity in the process and what made us so personable in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like,
For sure.
at school or just like even like your own creativity. Like you can really find yourself getting like hindered to needing like the AI inspiration all the time. Do you like have possibly any examples of like ways that you use like IT like in your like day to day, or if you know like how your employees possibly use it to help them?
Yeah, I mean, so we use so many tools. Obviously we're using ChatGPT. My developers use it to uh I my developers are very, very skilled, super I don't know, just expert developers. And so they'll use it because they know how to program. So they'll tell ChatGPT, "Hey, I need these." They'll give it the idea of what they need to do, and it's almost like they're giving the busy work to ChatGPT, and it just spits out like the framework of what they need to do, and then they're able to actually fill in the rest. And they're working with other tools that are sort of AI powered for things like that. They're not doing vibe coding where they're just like, "Hey, make this for me." They don't even know what it is. Um, so there's that. You know, we're using there's some other tools that you really should be learning and give you a leg up. There's Git, which is this version control system. So it's a way for you to, as you're working, you know, as you can imagine, programming projects are technical and they can be complicated. And there's a lot of files that are associated and organized in certain ways. And as you're programming, you know, you might finish something and then you're working on version 1.1. So how do you organize all of that? Git lets you do that. And then you know, GitHub is probably the place to go. It's almost like social programming where you can I could like if you were there, I could look you up and I could see some history of the type of projects that you're allowing me to look at that you've worked on, the work that you've actually done, the history of how often you're doing you're in there working, things like that. So those types of tools are really important. The tools you would use to do the work would be super good to have experience with. Beginning in high school, you know, be amazing and really help with not just the actual work you do in IT, but I mean those things themselves can become careers, managing those types of tools, and that's DevOps. So we have a guy. That's all he does is help us configure and manage the tools that we use for IT.
Oh wow. I didn't even. I think I've definitely heard like of GitHub before. I've like taken like intro IT classes like in
Mhm.
school, but I didn't really know like it could go that far. So in a way, like
Oh yeah.
you can make like a portfolio kind of like that, like to build yourself up. You could say.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And every time you commit, it's like people can see, oh, look, they contributed to this project, or you can copy if there's an open source project you like, you can copy a version of it and work on it yourself and take it in a direction you want to take it, or just copy it to look at it and tinker with it and see how it works. Things like that. And that kind of history of the work stuff you're doing in GitHub, if you're public, you can show like a resume in a way.
I actually do have some experience with GitHub. I never realized how valuable it would be in the sense of building a resume or the other ways I could use it because I used it primarily for research. So I think it's nice that GitHub is applicable to like multiple disciplines rather than just IT. Like I used it for research and biodiversity and find codes and so on. So that's very neat. I learned something new about something I already did and I had no idea.
Nice.
And I was just wondering, in a day-to-day life, what does a typical workday look for you and what would you consider a perfect workday to be?
Oh boy, the perfect work day. So my our work days are very meeting heavy in the morning because we have that office in Poland. And so their day ends around 11 a.m. our time. So we schedule all kind of meetings with them in order to coordinate the things that need to happen in a given day. And almost every day there's some important thing we either need to deliver or a question we need to answer for a client or something like that where we need to talk to them. And so every morning starts with a daily meeting that we have with you know the leaders over there in that office where we're coordinating. We also schedule a lot of client meetings if we need the guys in Poland to be involved. So it's just like if you look at my weekly calendar and like the mornings, it's just like stacked with meetings. And then the afternoons open up a bit, and that's where anything from doing some design work where we're working on mock-ups for a project that we're going to show our client, like, here's what we're thinking, to the most boring thing that I do is working on contracts and things like that. And what's the worst is that that's how you get paid. So you have to do it, but it's so boring. So that kind of thing happens usually in the afternoons. A perfect day would be we've done some design work. We get to present it to our client. They absolutely love it. Um, and then we land a new client later in the afternoon that says they're going with us for a certain project. And then we find out that Apple approved one of our apps that was in review. That would be like the perfect day.
Wow, it's really interesting, especially with like what's the time hour difference between like the US
6 hours.
six hours?
There's 6 hours ahead of us.
Hmm. Yeah, so how early do you like start your days then?
So we you know they we both offices start around 8 a.m. You know, 8 9, and so we don't. If we can avoid it, we don't. We try not to make them stay late. So in the early days of the company, like I said, we started this in college. We there was a guy in Gainesville who was from Poland. That's how we ended up with the office in Poland. And we were not as organized as we are now back then. So they were all kind of late, super late nights or super early mornings or really late nights for them because we needed them to stay late while we finished our day. And the only time that kind of thing happens now is when there's a real emergency situation that we have to deal with. But otherwise, our I, I'm I'm not like a I'm not like super into the whole hustle culture thing. Of course, I want to work hard. I want to make a good living, but I'm personally not trying to be the next Google, Facebook, Amazon, whatever. I want to just do really well, do really good work, enjoy what we do, and have a life. So we're very careful about, you know, I don't know. Like I hear how Elon Musk runs his teams, and it's like, woof. I know they're doing work that they are trying to change the world with, but I wouldn't want to sacrifice my time with my family to do it. So that's how we run our company.
Oh no, that's great to hear. It's good to have a work-life balance too, because I feel like at the end of the day, like you want to enjoy your life with the people around you, not like live to work, live to work essentially. Yeah.
I agree completely. Yeah.
Hmm. But yeah. For high school students right now, like what would you say to anyone like who knows for sure that they're interested? Like what would you say to them like that they could do to start like breaking into the field?
Yeah. So it's really, you know, uh, start building something. Um, and or if you're not sure what to build, find somebody that is building something and see if they'll let you help in some way. Be curious. Really, one thing that just learning to use the existing tools really well. So everybody's using AI, but really learning how it works, understanding how it works, and um, how to take it further than just the average person, and that's going to be super helpful. Um, that's one thing when I look back and thinking the path that I've gone down in my life. I wish I had started sooner. I loved programming, but I never became very good because first of all, I did it for maybe 5 to 8 years where I was doing a lot of programming, and then I started doing more and more of the managing and then becoming like CEO of the company where I don't do any. But had I started sooner, I would have gotten further. So dive in and do it. The other thing is, and anybody that's achieved any level of success knows this. At first, it feels impossible. There are things that may just seem like you're never going to get it, but that's part of it. Like struggling through that is so important because that's what helps us learn and remember. And even finding the things you don't like is really important. Like I found that I did not like. I like to see the results of my work, and the path I was on was going to be like very low level hardware type of things, and that wasn't going to make me very happy. So learning about yourself through the process too, I'd say, is really important. Paying attention to what you like and don't like, even outside of IT. Do you enjoy art? Do you enjoy, you know, physicality? And that's something I love, but boy, you don't get that a lot in IT. You're sitting at a desk.
Yeah.
So make sure you organize your life in a way that you can get some of those other things that are important to you if you pursue the IT path.
Right.
Yeah, and since you mentioned earlier that you wish you started earlier with programming and doing these things, do you have any basic certifications or programs that you would recommend high school students to start with as a beginner?
I don't have anything like specific to point to, but any of that is useful, you know. And getting a certification is good, and it's good to have on your resume, but even more important is the just like the actual work that you've done, you know. So like we're hiring someone in tech support, and he's currently in an internship. He had already done just a bunch of things on his own, like kind of like I'm describing, where he was more or less exploring how things work, but he did something that we could look at like on GitHub and check out how he thinks and see. And this isn't even a programming position, but it helps us understand how he thinks through problem solving and things like that. So um, just doing the work is going to be proof by itself, even if you don't get any certifications, because you're going to be able to speak to this experience that you've had, talk about what was difficult or what came easy to you, a problem that you solved, things like that, that are way more valuable than the actual certifications themselves, in my opinion.
Thank you for sharing.
The- Also, like smaller question, like as in like an alternative to college, could you like go into like some kind of job like straight into high school? Like, is there like beginner jobs available in IT?
So there definitely are. I do think going into with there's certainly roles out there entry level that if you've acquired the experience they're looking for, you'd be a candidate. It's not like in academia where if you don't have a degree, like forget about it, forget about promotions or things like that. But it is still, I think they want to look like getting a degree, some sort of IT related degree is the quickest sort of shortcut to going, okay, well, they had to get that degree, they had to have achieved a certain problem solving skill set that now we can teach them how to really do it, right? So, barring a degree, you want to have something on your resume that is proof for that, that, hey, I do know my stuff. And specifically for this job, I know how to do it, right? Or I'm a good candidate because I can learn how to do it because I've done these other things. So the experience you have is gonna be even more important if you're not going the degree path, but it certainly is doable. And I mean, some of the best programmers are either have a degree in something completely unrelated, or they've never got one. They just love doing it so much it's all they ever did, and they're the best in the world at it, you know?
Yeah, it's very neat to hear how there's a spectrum for which people could join into IT with. Like, it's not all one straight path. It could go multiple ways, kind of like a tree branch. And
Yeah.
when you first started out your journey in IT, like your first job, were there any specific challenges that you faced and how did you overcome them?
Um, I mean, when we got started, I met my business partner who was doing the MD PhD program at the University of Florida. And he is 4 years into it. He had finished his PhD and he decided to start a business. And so I met him just as he was doing that. And he wanted to do mobile. This was in the year 2000. And so before the iPhone, but his vision was to do mobile software. So at the time, you know, there was the Palm Pilot and Pocket PC and Blackberries. And he wanted it to take medical references, like something a doctor might use to look up a prescription or how to treat a disease, and make it into software that you could use, because the younger doctors didn't want to carry books. They wanted their little handheld computers. And so the first challenge was like, how do we sell this to people? So we started contacting publishing companies, and we got a big break with a very small publisher with a very popular book, and they happened to be looking for this. And so huge challenge was building that first thing. And that's going to be the case for anybody. When you are first doing something, you are going to make every single mistake. You're going to years later, when you've learned and you go back and look at what you did, you are literally going to be embarrassed. You're going to be like, what? I didn't know any better than to do this. Oh my gosh, you know? And, but that's how you get there, right? You got to start somewhere. And so we got our first client and we built it and it worked. Boy, did we, like I said, I keep saying we made every mistake in the book, but we used that to learn, and we improved, and we'd make a mistake and try to learn from it and try not to repeat it. And if we did, we continue to try to do better, right? And so over time, that's how you get better at things. So um yeah, that was getting that first product finished and out and released was a huge challenge that we overcame. And there have been many more along the way, but that one definitely sticks out.
But no, yeah, like mistakes was like I think the best way to really learn something because through seeing the errors of like your actions or like the consequences, I feel like you can always like because hindsight is always like 2020. It's much more easier to make better
Mhm.
judgment calls like after the fact. So like kind of like accumulating mistakes in a way. Not saying that you should like purposely try to mess up, but like making those mistakes really allows you to like make better decisions going forward. And
Yeah, and it's not about making the mistakes because those are going to happen by themselves. It's about taking risks, right? And risks that you've thought about, not like risks that are more likely to fail than not, but risks where you're like, you know, yeah, I'm going to put myself out there and try to do this thing or whatever, you know, generally speaking, taking the risk. And then if it doesn't go your way, that itself is extremely valuable, you know, because you will learn a lot from that thing, that risk you took that didn't pay off, you know, help you with the next risk that you choose to take.
Yeah, I feel like it's important to remind ourselves that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to kind of take those risks, and it's more important to just not fear to make those mistakes and also fear to take those risks. Because we do only live once at the end of the day, and we might as well. We're not perfect. It's our first time living.
That's true.
mhm. Yeah, but with all like these kind of like maybe mistakes or challenges, like have you ever really considered changing careers? Was there a moment that made you think like now what? And what did you learn from that?
Um, so I never had a moment that I can think of where I genuinely thought I'm switching careers. Like I'm gonna go do something entirely different. I am one of the lucky people that ended up doing something I mostly love, right? Like I said, I don't like the contract stuff. That's boring. But for the most part, I really enjoy the people I get to work with. Um, but life did sort of do it to me because I did go into computer science wanting to be a programmer, right? Like wanting to be on a team like those guys were at IBM, having fun in their cubicle, programming stuff. And instead, I ended up, you know, leading the company and whatnot. Um, so I don't know. I think it's about when opportunity presents itself, taking it. You know, there's a lot of times an opportunity comes along and they genuinely don't feel ready, but that opportunity, once it goes away, in many cases is not coming back. So even though you don't feel ready, there's a reason that opportunity is there. I can't remember who it was. I want to say it's one of the founders of Facebook, who said something along the lines of like, when you're invited to get on the rocket ship, you get on. Like you don't be like, I'll do it next time. No, that rocket ship's blasting off. It's not coming back. Like get on the rocket ship. And so I feel good about when there were opportunities and I took them, not even realizing, hey, well, this is taking me down a different path, right? I'm not going to be a programmer. You know, I feel I'm happy with what I've gotten to do, and the opportunities that I've taken as they presented themselves along the way.
Well, that's incredible. And I really like
There
that metaphor too.
I agree. I was gonna mention that. It's like I think that's something I'll start carrying with me just to ride that rocket ship. Because when else are you gonna get the chance to?
It's true, and so many times in life, we feel like, well, is this a good time to do this? And 99% of the time, there's never a good time.
Yeah.
that you got to make it time, make the time and do it, right? Whether, and that's one thing. Speaking to all of you in high school right now, you have, do you know what I would give if in the middle of my day or at, 3 o'clock when your school day is ending, I could go be coached by whatever sports team that is of interest to me, whatever physical thing I'm going to do, or whatever club where there's actual experts in the room for free telling me how to get better at this thing and getting that experience. There's so much opportunity you have right now that opportunity is going to go away. You're not going to be in high school someday. You're going to go to college where it's similar. Again, take all of those opportunities you can while you're there. Because as life moves along, some of those things are much harder to do. You can still do it. Like, yeah, I could still go find a team. And like, if I decided I love basketball and I wish I was better at it, but boy, would that be easier if I had done that in high school. And so just explore, be curious, go do all the things. And the more experience you have, especially in a field like IT, where it can apply to anything, the better you're going to be at whatever it is you choose to do in IT, because you're going to have this world of experience. Steve Jobs, going back to him, tells this story that he would just show up to a calligraphy class. He wasn't even enrolled. And he would go to that class the whole semester, and he learned all about typography and like whatever. And it's what helped with the very first like Mac computers had these fonts where you could actually change the way your text looked. And that was a very novel, interesting thing that, as the story he tells, came from that experience he had that was totally, completely, it was art related. It was unrelated to IT. And today, imagine, think about all the fonts and all these things that we have. I don't know if this is necessarily because of that, but it was part of that experience that he had that led to that. So be curious about all the things that are of interest, and go get as much experience as you can.
Yeah, definitely. Like trying new things is so important for learning who you are, especially if you want to figure out what career you want to do like for your life.
For
So,
sure.
so as we reach the end, our final question that we have for you is if you could share with us a thorn, a rose, and a bud in your career. A thorn represents a challenge. A rose represents something positive that has happened, and then a bud is something that you look forward to blooming later.
The thorn is always the contract work, the boring stuff that we have to do, but it's important. And like I said, that's how you get paid. Um, what was it? The rose
Rose
is
is
the
something positive that has happened.
positive. I mean, so I can't get into details because we have like non-disclosure agreements, but in like I said, some of my job, we work with all these companies and we build the things that, so they have problems and they come to us and we help them build solutions to them. And it's not uncommon that they come to us with a problem, we come up with an idea to solve it, and it's usually like, because we're not in their field, we don't know all of the ins and outs and everything that goes on with what they do. So we try to learn as much as we can. We present it, and they go, "Oh, okay, yeah, this is a good starting point. If we did this," like they help us get there, and that's part of the fun. But recently, we had a client who had a problem, right? And they came to us and they're like, "We're not sure what to do about this." And we had one of like what I felt like was an amazing idea, and we presented it to them, and sure enough, they've just loved it. Like they were, before we even told them how much it cost, they were like getting out the checkbook ready to. So that's always fun when you like really just nail it. That's like the best feeling in the world. So that was fun. And then the last one is a bud.
Yes, something that you look forward to in the future.
Hmm. Um, has to be like work related or just anything.
It could be anything.
I mean, I always look forward to like vacationing with my family. We just got back from the beach, so that was fun. And you know, starting to think about what the next family trip is going to be. So that's something that I like to look forward to.
That's wonderful.
That is. Well, thank you for being such an amazing guest for our IT episode, Eric. We really appreciate you spending the time to talk to us and talk to the high school students and the audience about your experiences. And is there any socials you'd like to mention on where we could find you in the future? Or the listeners can find you in general.
That's one thing I need to do better at. Maybe one of my thorns is I don't do a lot of social personally social, but our website's atmosphereapps.com. The company is on, various like LinkedIn and whatnot. Um, so you can check us out there. And I'm always happy to answer emails or questions. I have 3 daughters, 13 to 21. And then I have stepkids that are similar age ranges. I love talking to them about their futures, and love talking to this kind of thing. I just absolutely love it. So thank you for having me on. It's been really fun to talk about, and I think this is gonna be really helpful what you're doing for high school. I wish I had something like this. Maybe I would have bumped into something like this and started programming earlier, uh, if it had existed when I was a teenager.
Yeah, you guys, you heard it from Eric. Start now. It's never too early to start.
It's true.
That marks our end for Now What? Bye.
Bye.